Glory to Jesus Christ. So thank you for being here. Today is the very special day for our country, the election day, and it's almost the end of it. But we continue to study. We continue to discover and deep our knowledge of our faith, of our tradition, because this world is changing very fast, and today very soon will be yesterday, and tomorrow is not clear. But we try to take part in eternity, to this studies, to this knowledge, to this understanding of what we believe and how God revealed himself to us in context of this our tradition, of this our path to him. So we finished Immaculate Conception, and I would like that we start another topic. And right from beginning, I would like to say that I intend to speak about temple, but don't believe me so easy, because I would like to do this in a very complicated way. I don't want to say that temple is the building. I would like to really do with you long journey from really Old Testament, from all these typos, archetypes that will be revealed fully in Christ in New Testament. Walk this journey of knowledge, of theology, of revelation, and try to understand what is really temple. So this big, huge topic will be divided in smaller topics. I think it could be more complicated, but in the same way it will be more easy. Because, if steak is very big, you cannot eat it with one bite. You have to cut it and eat by pieces, because it's too big and mouth is too small. So the same is with brain. Let's divide this topic in like subtopics and discuss every one, and we will come to understanding of what is Eastern Christian temple in context of our tradition. Now, why it exists and why we come to it, what we do here. And we will start with these two subtopics, and you see, with this first one. And it will take, I think, I'm not a prophet, but at least 2-3 meetings. So temple is a sacrifice, and I already offer you spoiler. This is the action of man. When I say action of man, so it's, I hope the feminist movement won't kill me. I mean all humanity when I say man. I can change it if it offends for someone. Action of man. And the second topic that we will discuss after, it will be manifestation. Manifestation as an action of God. And also, I put this word here, is the place. Is sacrifice, is, according to human understanding, is doing something, is dynamic. It's we do. Manifestation from God also dynamic, but it reveals us another, let's say, level of holiness that is place. So, action and place. Action of man and action of God. Okay, and two these ideas are fundamental for the understanding of the temple. Why I would like to do this in this way? Okay, we cannot, for example, imagine that we study, I don't know, some novel in university, and we have to read, analyze, and discuss this novel and discover the major points of it and open the idea and message of this novel and understand the intention of after when he was writing this novel. We cannot do this if we cannot read, if we don't know the letters. So for get to the level of college, so first we have to go in school and start with A, B, C, D, after learn to read, and after read some smaller and much easier texts, and after get to another level. So temple is already very difficult conception. We could offer some sample understanding of it, but I really prefer that we go deeper. We have time, and studies, it's always about quality. I think better offer all the efforts and know something good and understand something good than know everything without understanding. The modern culture of Google that offers you the quick, general knowledge of everything that you ask is great, but it does not offer really understanding why and how. So, first, sacrifice. And we will speak today about sacrifice in Old Testament as a typos. Do you remember this Greek word archetype, typos, of New Testament? And we will have a little bit of Biblical studies, because we need to analyze text of Holy Bible that says us about sacrifices. And I will try to show you how the Old Testament quotes are connected with New Testament quotes, because Old Testament is the shadow, is the hidden New Testament, said by prophets, but fully revealed in Christ. So in light of Christ, we understand Old Testament, but Old Testament already keeps inside of it New Testament. And of course, we will speak about different comments. Here we will speak about also rabbinic comments, Old Testament tradition, and we will speak about comments of fathers of the church for balance and see how this idea is developing through ages. So, do you know when first time is mentioned word sacrifice in Old Testament? Exactly. Genesis 4:6. Time passed, and Cain brought some of the produce of the soil as an offering for God, while Abel, for his part, brought the firstborn of his flock and some of their fat as well. God looked with favor on Abel and his offering. This is the first time in the Revelation that we find about sacrifice. And good question if we ask why they brought sacrifices to God. Why they do this? How they know that God wants them? Next question, who offered them this lesson, how to do sacrifices? And why this kind of sacrifices? In case of Cain, is produce the fruits of the soil, and in case of Abel, the firstborn of his flock and some of their fat. Why firstborn of the flock and why fat? This is the right beginning. So, humanity, when we speak about humanity, it's Adam, Eve, and their children. They were banished from Garden of Eden, and they started to live on the earth as a place of exile that was cursed because of their sins. And when they start to live on earth, they start to do sacrifices. No sacrifices in garden, nothing about it. But on the earth, they start to do this. Interesting. It's like it will be a little bit like a movie about detectives, you know, when there is some crime and we have to investigate what is happening. And interesting, if we jump, I don't know how many centuries in future, and we will read the book of Exodus, because in this book God started to give his law to Moses. Before, this law was not given to humanity. People didn't know the law of God. Nothing except direct request of God, like to Abraham or to Noah. But the law was given to Moses. And when we read, people in the desert accept this law. All that first issues from the womb is mine, say God. Every male, every firstborn of flock or herd. You must redeem all the firstborn of your sons. So, you see, this is the question. Many centuries after, God will order to his people that every firstborn in through animals and through sons should be offered to God or redeemed. And Abel, they didn't have this revelation. He, without knowledge of law that was revealed to Moses, brought the firstborn of his flock to God. Why? Another book, Leviticus, 3rd chapter, 16-17. The priest must burn these pieces on the altar as food, as a burnt offering for God. All the fat belongs to God. This is a perpetual law for all your descendants. Whatever you may live, never eat fat or blood. So, Leviticus, it's already, after, it's the law for priests, for clergy, for Cohens, and for Levites, for deacons, Old Testament deacons. And according to this law, when priests do sacrifices to God, I would say in Tabernacle or in Temple of Jerusalem, prescription is the same. They have to offer all the fat of animals and burn it. So, with fire it was consumed, and with smoke lift up to heaven. And this was law, not eat fat, but burn fat, because this is the part of sacrifice. And this is very specific prescription, I would say instruction, for clergy of the Temple of Jerusalem. Even simple people, they could not understand the differences and details, because Cohens, priests, and deacons, they belong to one tribe, to one specific family, like Moses and Aaron. Only one tribe, do we say tribe in English? One of the 12. Priests cannot be from another tribes. Leviticus and priests, Cohens, coin, it's in Hebraic, it's not a coin as money. Coin in Hebraic is the priest. In New York you can find many last names, like a coin, something like this. This is the priest. They could leave the status because of sins, falls, different things. But no one could join. It's by birth. So, was this instruction to them during sacrificing animals to God? Burn fat. And now, one more time, how Abel knew about this? Why he brought not only firstborn from his flock, but also fat? What is this? What is the mystery of this? So, let's speak about Cain first. And now, like I said, we will have a little bit of Bible studies to understand what is happening here. Rabbi Rashi, it's the number one in commenting Torah. Is lateral meaning, lateral understanding, but more lateral is it, more mysterious and enigmatic it is. What he say? The fruits of the soil, the most interior. There is an Agadah that states that it was flax seed. What is it, Agadah? It's Targum Jonathan. It's like I will use terminology verbal tradition, okay? Because there is the written text of Holy Bible. Of course, we have Masoretic version, we have Septuaginta version, we have different translations, but we have written text. But also there are verbal tradition. It's comments and reflections of people about. And according to this verbal tradition, he brought flax seed. Is the most miserable that he could bring to God. Okay. Another explanation, said Rashi, from whatever came to his hand, not the best and not the choicest. So what he intended to say? We speak about Cain now. We left Abel with his mystery, about his mysterious actions and sacrifices that anticipated the future revelation. And we go to Cain. And Rashi said that God didn't accept his sacrifice because his sacrifice was a garbage. Like he brought to God as worst that he had. And he really did this without heart, I could say, not the best and no choicest. So like, okay, I don't need this. In Ukraine we have says, "На тобі Боже, що мені не гоже." Це take God what I don't need, something like this. Take this because I don't need it, What he says about Abel, he says that fire descended and consumed his offering. And it's another verbal tradition, Song Sutta 6.2. He said how God liked this, how God accepted. Fire came from heaven and took this sacrifice. And now, like I said, it's verbal tradition. You cannot find this in Bible text. But it's something that is around and that people translate from generation to generation as a knowledge. And we also have verbal tradition. Many of our feasts and a lot of knowledge that we have, according to our tradition, we take from verbal tradition. For example, different feast of Mother of God. Many things about Mother of God are hidden. We don't know about Mother of God too much from Old Testament. But we know a lot from verbal tradition. What was after, what was before, and etc., etc. We don't need to accept this so easily. We have to reflect and be attentive and careful. But there are some knowledge that is translating from one generation to another. So another rabbi, another famous reader and commentator of 5 books of the Moed, this is Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, Rambam. what he says. This man understood the great secret of the sacrifices and the meal offerings. So, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman is one of the teachers of Kabbalah. So he really does not reveal too much, but he speaks like in secrets that some disciples closer to can understand. Oh, he says that Cain and Abel, they understood the great secret of sacrifices. They knew something that another people didn't know. He doesn't explain too much. Also did Noah. And about Noah we will speak next time. Our rabbis have said that the first man also sacrificed bullock. You see what Rabbi Nachman's, not Nachman, I'm sorry, Rabbi Nachmanides, Ramban, what he's saying. He said the first man means Adam, also sacrificed a bullock. And as a source of knowledge, he brings the quote from Psalm 69. I will praise the name of God in song, and I will glorify him with thanksgiving. This will please the Lord more than oxen or bullocks with horns and divided hooves. So, saying about sacrifices, he also brings out the verbal tradition and says that the first who was doing sacrifices was not Cain and Abel, but was Adam. He first started to do sacrifices. Do we know this from Bible? No. Directly no, but we know that his sons started to do sacrifices, and their sacrifices already anticipated the sacrifices of future in details and in prescriptions. So there is some mystery here. How they know? From who they know? God didn't reveal nothing to them about sacrifices. Even sacrifice of Cain is also connected with future revelation, because in the during Feast of Harvest on altar was put the fruit of harvest, were sacrificed grapes, wine, wheat, not only animals, olive oil. Everything was put on altar to sacrifice this to God. So we have this kind of sacrifices, from fruits of the earth and firstborn of flock, so lambs, and their fat. Interesting. Also, Rabbi Ramban Moshe ben Nachman mentions that inside of Judaism was discussion that maybe sacrifices became part of Judaism because Jews took these practices from pagans that lived around. Because pagans were sacrificing everything, even more. When we will speak about Abraham, we will speak about sacrifice of Isaac. And are you familiar with archaeology of Canaan, of the land of Israel before coming of Israelites there? No. Okay, we will speak about this. They were sacrificing their own children. And archaeology got a lot of proofs of it. Big pots with bones of burned children inside of them. We will speak about this. So they were sacrificing a lot of things. And the theory, the question was, maybe Judaism took this practice and applied this to relationship with God. But Rabbi Nachman said no. You see, idolatry does not exist in this first generation. They don't worship idols. No pagan beliefs. It's only God. They know about God. They still keep dialogue with God. So originally, sacrifice is something that was started there in first generation of people. Now, we mentioned about Exodus, the firstborn from your flock, firstborn from your herd, firstborn from your sons should be offered to God or redeemed. And there is the law. I didn't want to bring the quote because it's pretty long, how should be redeemed. These prescriptions, they could be very boring if you are not study them and you read. Many details, how to do this, exceptions, and etc., etc., etc. But do you remember the feast that we celebrate during liturgical year? This is the meeting, a presentation of the Christ into the temple, and or in other way we name it a meeting with Simon and Anne, when Christ, as a firstborn, was brought to the temple. We more pull attention on meeting with Simon and Anne. And sometimes we let it go why they brought Christ to the temple, Mary and Joseph. Because this is the same prescription from Exodus. Every firstborn should be sacrificed to God or redeemed. What does it mean, sacrifice? You have to kill it. Took the life and give it to God, or you have to redeem it. Replace the life of, let's say, your firstborn son with a lamb. So lamb will be sacrificed instead of your firstborn son. And this is the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 2, 22, 23. And when the day came for them to be purified, as laid down by the law of Moses, they took him, Jesus, up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord, observing what stands written in the law of the Lord. Every firstborn male must be consecrated to the Lord, and also to offer in sacrifice in accordance with what is said in the law of the Lord. Like, they, of course, didn't intend to sacrifice Jesus. They intend to redeem his with another sacrifice according to the law. Exodus 34:19. And their sacrifice was a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. And we know, if we read the law from Exodus, the sacrifice, recommended sacrifice, was a lamb. But if you poor, you cannot give this sacrifice or replace this expensive sacrifice, a lamb, because it's expensive, with pair of young pigeons or doves. And why Mary and Joseph came to Jerusalem? For this reason. What they did? They completed this commandment, this prescription of the law. They brought Jesus as a firstborn to sacrifice him and redeem him with sacrifice of poor people. So we even can understand how rich they were, how much money they had on their account for the moment, about their social status. They were poor. So they brought a pair of pigeons as a redemption. You see how we go to Jesus, to all of this? Saint Ephraim Syrian, this famous father of the church that we like to read his prayer during Great Lent. Cain had oxen and calves. He had no shortage of animals and birds to sacrifice them, says Ephraim Syrian. How he knows? Is it revealed in Old Testament? No. And here we have deal with verbal tradition. And you know what I would like to say, because I use the comment of St. Ephraim Syrian to the book of Genesis pretty often for study different topics, and he, from the fathers of the church, he's more closest to the Judaic, to the Old Testament tradition than in other fathers of the church. Looks like, I don't know, I didn't have like special studies about him, but I think that the environment of Syria with many Jews, with Antiochia, one of the original centers of Christianity, Judaism also, that this connection with Old Testament, these roots, and this inheritance was very strong, and also this inheritance was transferred and accepted by Christians of the Antiochian school. Do you remember we mentioned about center of Christianity, about Christian theology, the school of Antioch. This is the Syria. So he definitely has access to some knowledge of verbal tradition. He speaks even without explain when he says this. Looks like people that listen him don't put in doubts his words, like it's clear. If he says, it means that this is general knowledge. Cain had oxen and calves. He had no shortage in animals and birds to sacrifice them. And was there a lack of ears to sacrifice, in good ears, or in the fruits of the tree to choose the best of them? So I think when he speaks about animals that Cain had, he speaks about animals in context of agriculture, because for work on the earth he probably needed these animals, but he also mentions about birds. So not that Cain was limited only on earth and Abel had only his flock. No, they both has, not both. About Abel, we know that he didn't want to work on earth because it was cursed. It's verbal tradition. About Cain, we know that he has animals, but also he worked on the earth probably using these animals. But what Ephraim Syrian tried to say, that Cain had everything to bring to God good sacrifice. Not shortage in nothing. Fruits of earth and different farm animals and birds, he could do the best sacrifice. He didn't take care of the good ears or the fruits of the best. In the soul of the sacrificer, there was not love for the acceptor of the offering. And since he sacrificed with negligence, do I pronounce it good? Negligence, God rejected it. It's comments to the Genesis, to the book of Genesis. You see, he's very similar with Rashi. And he lived before Rashi. Rashi is, if I'm good with my memory, is 12th or 13th century. I could be wrong, but it's medieval. St. Ephraim, it's the peer of St. John Chrysostom, younger peer of St. Gregory and St. Basil. So it's 4th, 5th century. Looks like they have the same ideas in Christianity and in Judaism, with difference of almost 1,000 years. Almost, generally. They speak about heart of Cain. Why sacrifice was not accepted? Because he didn't have a love, he didn't do efforts. This sacrifice, in other words, was not expression of his intention, feelings, and thoughts. It was not, how does it say? Internal man and external man in this sacrifice, they didn't have connection. You know, if sacrifice is external manifestation of inner man, in Cain, it didn't happen. This is pretty nice, because sacrificer, there was, okay, in the soul of the sacrificers, there was not love for the acceptor of the offering. St. John Chrysostom, another father of the church that comments book of Genesis, you can find a pretty good amount of comments, but they more about creation. If we go outside of creation, it's more and more difficult to find comments. So St. John Chrysostom is one of these fathers that not afraid to comment a whole book of Genesis. And this is like, in Latin is oratio. Oratio is like a speech or discussion or sermon about something. So it's sermon 18.4. He knew and understood that it's necessary to bring some fruit to God as the Lord from his estate, not because God needs it, but in order to enjoy such a great good, God's good, to show his gratitude. God has no need for anything and does not demand anything from us, but condescending to us according to his unspeakable love of humanity, he allows it for the sake of our salvation, so that the knowledge of the Lord will serve as a school of virtue for human nature. Pretty difficult expression, but what he would like to say, that Cain and Abel, they realized it's his understanding, okay? It's not a dogma, it's his theology, his understanding. They realized that they need to say thank you to God for his love and for his generosity and for his blessings for them. And sacrifices, what he speaks about, the principle of sacrifice that begins inside of the human heart. So sacrifice begins from the human heart. It's there. And good sacrifice, right sacrifice, it's expression of this gratitude and thanks to God for what we accepted from him, how we blessed for him. And what he said, so that the knowledge of the Lord will serve as a school of virtue for human nature. Sacrifice should bring changes inside of us. When I sacrifice something, I not only sacrifice something that I own. For example, I have seeds and I sacrifice them to God, but I have different seeds. What he speaks, sacrifice, it's not only what I have. Sacrifice, it's about who I am. Because I have to sacrifice the best to God. Why? Because I have to give him the part of myself. Not only Rashi and San Ephraim and St. John, what they speak? They speak that, going back to verbal tradition, that Cain could bring to God different things. He had everything, but he brought to God the worst. The worst. Without reflection, without choice, without his heart, without love to God. So he gave to God what he had and what he didn't need. But he didn't experience any changes because of this sacrifice. He became who he is. It does not change him. This sacrifice as a relationship didn't change him, didn't affect him. Another example, let's try to apply the situation to relationship between husband and wife, or between parents and children. Because of our love for a spouse, for children, we do sacrifices. We give something that is precious for us. But in giving what is precious for us, we give ourselves. Do you understand me? We give ourselves in real sacrifice. So what we really do, what we really give, it's only expression, visible expression of my inner nature, of my spiritual nature that I offer. I offer myself. Do you remember the story of in gospel, like poor widow offered like 2 coins, and Christ said that your donation is the biggest donation, because another people gave from the money that, from a lot that they had, they give like a small piece of what they had, but this small piece was big. She didn't have too much, but she gave everything. This was the biggest sacrifice, because she gave herself, because it was everything that she owned. The same here. What they intend to say, people work on the earth, for example, and for bring the fruits of the earth, they have to choose the best. I give the best to God. And I don't know where I transfer this. I lose this. I could eat it. I could give it to my children. I work hard. I didn't sleep. It was different weather, sun that was burning my skin, cold that brought me a lot of problems. I try to protect my harvest, and finally I have it. So the best I have to choose to give it to God, because everything that I have from Him. And when I do the best, I do really the part of my heart. Because I put my heart in get this harvest. I put my life in it. If I do the flax seed, the garbage, okay, you don't need this, God, this is for you. It doesn't affect me. I do some formality. It's external action that doesn't affect me. And it's not about quantity. It's about, you remember these words of the gospel? Where is your treasure, there is your heart. So it's about this. And the same with animal. You think that it's so easy. Now we live in cities, in towns, we don't understand it anymore. But for people that had farms, for people that were nomades and walked with flocks, it was their life, these lambs. It was their life. They had milk, they had meat, they had clothes from their skin and hair. They had their houses also from this. It whole their life. And firstborn lamb, it's like a treasure, small treasure, and I have to give it to God. It will disappear. Like I can eat it, I can keep it. It could be, multiplied after, it bring me richness. But I not give only a lamb. I give a part of my heart. Do you understand me what I would like to say? Okay, so in this context, St. John Chrysostom says that the knowledge of the Lord will serve as a school of virtue for human nature. So in a relationship with God, knowing God and experiencing God in sacrifice, we really improve our human nature. from sinfulness to holiness, from bad skills to virtue. Okay, the same oratio, the same speech. 18. Look how scripture show us his able, God-loving intention. You see, he goes directly in human heart. He doesn't speak about external manifestation of sacrifice, how sacrifice looks. He goes to see what is behind, what is inside, what is spiritual. God-loving intention, he names this. And what he brought, that is expensive, selected, the most precious, it's saved from the most pleasant, the best. The scriptures do not notice anything like this about Cain, but only say that he brought a gift from the fruits of the earth, which, so to speak, happened without any effort and analysis. I don't need to explain this, it's true. So for Cain, Genesis, book of Genesis said, he brought only fruits. And for Abel, it's the best, it's the precious, it's the expensive, selected, and all the things. Now, let's go directly to the verbal tradition of Old Testament. We will speak about some midrash. Midrash is the mode of interpreting the Bible that uses rabbinic style. It's come from the verb darash, to seek, inquire or require. So there are different midrash, different stories. I have a nice book where all they put together, that you can go to the 5 books of the Moedes and see different midrash put together, and sometimes they're different. Why? Because it's verbal tradition. We don't accept them as 100% true, but we consider them like a reflection about why and how and what. So, Midrash say, expelling Adam and Eve from Gan Eden is the paradise, God settled them next to the garden on Mount Moriah. He hoped that the sanctity of garden, who stretched nearby, would have a beneficial effect on them. This is super important. You probably don't understand this from my bad reading. God expelled Adam and Eve from paradise, but he expelled them, according to the verbal tradition, a specific place. He made them live on the Mount Moriah. Do you know what is it, Mount Moriah? What it could be? Maybe I pronounce it wrongly. Maybe in English. Huh? Moriah. Maybe.
Is it Mount Moriah?
Let's say, I don't know. Okay, I will say you. Maybe because my translation that I use is Moriah. It's with H in the end. Moriah could be Moriah. This is the mount where Abraham brought Isaac to sacrifice him. Good idea. After, the tradition would say that the same mount is the Mount Sinai, on which will be built the Temple of Jerusalem. You see how interesting? It's really like this detective story that we have to do investigation, that there are different pieces. When we try to understand them and put them together, it's something incredible. It's something incredible. Verbal tradition says that Adam and Eve started to live right after paradise, because God thought that if they will live on this mount is right in front of paradise. It's like paradise to the top, Gan Eden. We name it paradise, Pardes. Pardes, it's the Hebrew word for the garden. We use paradise to say paradise, Gan Eden. So, paradise, and he expelled him and say, don't go far, but live here, because this mount is right under. So, the holiness of paradise still will be there, close to you. It's the closest place to the heaven, would say, to the God. And Mount, how you say it, Mount Moriah?
I think it's Moriah.
Moriah? If I say Moriah, you will understand
Moriah.
this like that exact, okay, Moriah, I have to, Moriah, okay. If I pronounce it wrong, correct me. Moriah. So verbal traditions say that they started to live on the Mount Moriah. And they, why? Because it was the most closest place to the holiness of paradise. After. When the, okay, this is interesting. When the 14th Nisan came, Adam called his sons and said, do you know what is it, 14 Nisan? Passover. Yes. They still didn't have calendar because it was ordered from God to Moses start to count the days. For understand like heavenly processes and their manifestation in the space and time, they needed calendar. But verbal tradition in one way, they are like apply the present to the past, but in the same time they explain what is happening. When the 14th Nisan came, Adam called his sons and said, I know that in future the Jew will bring Passover sacrifices to God on this day in memory of the miracles that will happen to them on Passover night. On this day, it's appropriate for you to make sacrifices to please the Creator. It's another Midrash says. Like I said, we could understand this differently. We could say, of course, they already had calendar and they, like in the light of presence, look on the past. That Adam said these words. But we also can say that revelation of God, it's a revelation of eternity, an application of eternity to the space and time. So it was always. It was always. And if we say that God planned salvation because the Old Testament Passover and sacrifice, we'll speak about this later, not now. I'm only anticipating to try to help you, put together the pieces of puzzle. Do you remember the sacrifice of Passover? Is the lamb eaten without breaking bones and his blood on the doors before the entrance for save the firstborn sons, children from angel of death. And of course for us this lamb is Jesus Christ and his sacrifice for us that happened during Passover. And for us, our Passover is the passage from death to life, because literal understanding of Passover, it's passage. They left Egypt, they left slavery and became free. For us, it's the passage from death to life, from sinfulness to holiness. And this is the Lamb of God that takes the sins of the world. This is the typos of Jesus Christ. He is our Passover. And, of course, right from beginning, in providence of God, it already had place. Do you remember the proto-gospel? When God revealed to Adam and Eve about the woman and his seed that will squeeze the head of the serpent. In context of Adam and Eve, it sounds like madness. What are you speaking about? But now we understand what God was speaking about, because already it was in providence of God. It already was in eternity. It only was applied in space and time when God wanted this, when fulfillment of time came, like Holy Bible says. So, in this light, we could say that 14 Nisan is something eternal, it's something that happens there. And Adam living in front of paradise in this holy place and get this radiance of holiness from paradise in light of this knowledge, I said we have to do sacrifices because God wants this from us. Don't consider this like only one explanation, but only like a aspect of understanding. Okay. God was satisfied with Abel's sincerity and accepted his sacrifice, sending heavenly fire to swallow it. So Midrash says the same that Rashi, or better say Rashi uses Midrash to say about fire that consumed the sacrifice. Cain, now we have to finish, but I need to say this to you because it's also important. So it will take a couple minutes more. Another piece of puzzle that will help us understand about sacrifice. When Midrash speaks about killing of Abel by Cain, what was after? Midrash says, Cain, not knowing how to kill his brother, threw sticks and stones at Abel, inflicting wounds all over his body. Finally, he hit Abel in the neck. He died right away. What Midrash say? That Cain didn't know how to kill his brother because he never killed no one. And he was throwing in him everything that was around. But it was worse and worse, and only wounds, scratches. And finally he cut his neck and he died immediately. And after, Midrash explains how Cain knew how and in which place to inflict fatal wound on Abel. And the answer, he once saw Adam stabbing a sacrificial bull, cutting a vein on his neck. Okay? This is the explanation of Old Testament verbal tradition. That Cain killed Abel in this way, cutting his neck, because he saw sacrifices of Adam, his father, sacrifices of bull, or sacrifice of bull, one, we don't know, many, one sacrifice of bull. And during this sacrifice of bull, Adam cut the vein on the neck of the bull, and bull died. And also, why were two cuts? One on the level of stomach, another on the level of the throat, because through these two cuts, all blood could go out. And do you remember that it was forbidden to eat blood and use it for every reason, because they believe that there is the animal soul in the blood, like a life, a soul was in blood, so blood should be eliminated from the food and from sacrifice. It should go, because it doesn't belong to us. We cannot eat it. We could eat meat, but not flesh, but not the soul. And soul is in blood. This is the life. Do you remember the gospel of this Sunday? Bleeding bleeding woman, fathers of the church, when they read it, they say she was dying spiritually, because lose blood means lose life, lose your life. It's one of the way to understand this. So you see, do you remember Rabbi Ramban that speaks about sacrifices of bullock? Sacrifice of bullock done by Adam in paradise, after be expelled from paradise. He probably also uses the same source. I don't know. I'm not sure. But this midrash that I could read says that Adam was first to do sacrifice. He started to do this. It's only gospel. Book of Genesis doesn't say this directly. But if we do investigation and reflection, we come to the understanding that sons learn this from father. And even death of Abel was done in the same way like sacrifice was done. That Cain learned this from Adam, how to kill, because he didn't know. I didn't open all the topic. We will continue next time, okay? Speaking about sacrifice and putting pieces together to create one vision, one puzzle, okay? Thank you so much.